Good day, everybody. I hope everybody is doing well. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar that's titled Microphone On: Scientific Discovery and Stories from Diaspora Pathmakers. The webinar is a collaboration between the Science Communication Committee at the National Science Policy Network and students at the University of Ibadan who are part of the Ibadan Bacteriophage research team. To give you a little bit of an introduction, NSPN is an association of civically minded individuals and local chapters that are committed to strengthening the role of science in society. And the thought for this webinar came up to kind of introduce and foster interest in scientific research careers among students in Nigerian universities. And we started with the University of Ibadan because those were the students that actually brought this idea to NSPN. And we're very thankful for the opportunity to spotlight scientific research and communication opportunities, and we look forward to today's discussion. Today's moderator will be Chioma, who was actually a panelist at our first webinar, and I'll introduce her briefly. Chioma Christine Nyama is a fourth-year biomedical sciences PhD candidate at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Her research is focused on endocrinology and metabolic activities. She received her bachelor's degree in chemistry from Albany State University in 2019. She currently works under the direction of Dr. Brian T. Layden, studying the adipose-specific effects of free fatty acid receptor 2 and its interaction with short-chain fatty acids in mouse models to complete the characterization of the receptor and establish its potential as a drug target for diabetes and other metabolic diseases. She has won multiple awards for her research presentations to both scientific and non-scientific audiences, and she likes to spend her free time training to be an aerialist, brewing kombucha, writing opinion pieces for her website, and hanging out with her siblings and friends. Thank you very much for coming to moderate this channel. I'd like to remind everybody that if you have questions during the panel event, please put them in the chat and we'll get to them after we go through the scheduled questions.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Ope. And thank you to our panelists for willing to share their expertise with us and just talk to the students at UI about what it means to be a scientist in the diaspora. First, I would like to hand over to our panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with the questions. So we can start with Wealth. Tell us about yourself and your journey and your science.
Okay, thank you very much, Chioma. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to the organizers of this event for inviting me. I consider it a great honor to be here. So I am Wealth Okete. I trained as a biochemist from the University of Benin here in Nigeria. And shortly after my training, I graduated and then I took an interest in science communication. It was just like a flair for writing, and I wanted to explore it in the field of science. But it has taken a couple of years, but 4 years after, I'm now doing podcasting. I currently host the Immunology in Africa podcast, through which I contribute to amplifying the voices of African immunologists, whether they are based in the continent or in the diaspora, educating lay people about research that intersperse the immune system, and also providing access to role models for individuals, incoming scientists. Alongside the Immunology in Africa podcast, I am also a co-founder of an amazing bioscience community for young African scientists. The community is called Biosfera. So we launched it during the COVID-19 pandemic as a platform that could nurture emerging scientists from the continent. So we offer opportunities to these scientists for learning, collaboration, skills acquisition, and lots of related opportunities, including mentorship. So just to add that, the community used to be called Science Cafe, and we just recently changed our name to Biosfera. So thank you so much for having me here, and I look forward to having a really engaging and eye-opening conversation with all the panelists.
Thank you, Wealth. Starting off strong. How about next we go to Elizabeth? Please tell us about what you do, who you are and what you do.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. So my name is Elizabeth, and I'm currently a AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellow. And I'm currently placed at the National Institutes of Health. And I am in the Office of Communications where I am. So the National Institutes, they have 27 different institutes. I'm in one of them. And within that one, I'm working with communications, which is going to be to other scientists and to the public as a whole. Prior to my fellowship, I was a science teacher. I taught 6th to 12th graders. And so in the US, that is from ages 12 to 18. I taught chemistry, biology, anatomy and physiology, physical science. And prior to that, I was also doing a little bit of freelance communications work. And my background is that I got my PhD from Case Western Reserve University in the field of pathology. My research was focused on glioblastoma and trying to find new therapeutic interventions for that disease, particularly looking at the mitochondria. And so, yeah, I really do love science communications. I think it's really important for people to be well-informed so that they can make well-informed decisions. I'm happy to be here. And I also want to just share that the perspectives and thoughts that I have here are my own and do not reflect the organizations or agency that I am a part of at the moment.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you for taking the time to make sure that the community is educated on science. We appreciate it. And next, and finally, we will go to Anna. Anna, please tell us about yourself and about your science.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me here. Very happy to be here and share a little bit about myself. So my name is Anna, and currently I'm a pharmaceutical representative at GlaxoSmithKline, also known as GSK, where I do sales. So I promote the respiratory portfolio of our company. And prior to that, I've had quite a, I guess, career in academia as well. So I started off with my bachelor's in chemistry, and then I went on to my master's in chemistry as well. And then I went on to my PhD in chemistry, and then went on to a postdoc as well. And after all that time in academia, I realized that research wasn't for me. And so I transitioned into pharmaceuticals. So I still have a passion for research. My research, which was based in chemistry, was specifically looking at medicinal chemistry and finding different therapeutics for various cancers and diseases. So it was very interesting, but I'll get into probably a little later why I transitioned out of it. And so now I'm taking more of a science communication route where it's still based in science, but more communicating science in the sales field of pharmaceuticals. So yeah, happy to be here. And I will echo Elizabeth that the views that I'm about to present today and everything I'm about to talk about are my own views and don't represent my company as well.
Thank you, Anna. And as you guys can see, we have 3 amazing panelists with a wealth of experience from all over the scientific world. And I think we're in for an amazing session. So our opening question is a very simple one, just to give us an orientation of who everyone is. We'd like to open with a question that helps orient our audience to science and science media. And this question has 3 facets. So who is a scientist? Who is a science communicator? And where do you currently see yourself in your professional journey? And feel free to answer them in any order.
I don't mind going first.
Awesome. Thank you.
To me, a scientist is someone who conducts and gathers research to further the knowledge of a particular area or field. And so that can look like, and from my perspective, a biomedical scientist or a political scientist, a computer scientist, environmental scientist, an engineer. There's a lot of different scientists in a variety of different fields. And so a science communicator is someone that then can communicate said science to a variety of audiences. That can include like a scientific journalist, a scientific artist. There's medical artists that have to depict variety of things that are happening within the human body so that we that don't see within the human body within our own eyes or with our own eyes can understand. And I think for me, in terms of my professional journey, I'm just getting started. I'm a little over 2 years removed from just defending my dissertation. And so I do have a lot of interest in conveying science very clearly and simply to a variety of people, all audiences. I think that allows for them to feel empowered in making decisions. But yeah, I'll let my other panelists also share.
Thank you. Anna, would you like to go next?
Yeah, for sure. So I pretty much agree with everything Liz said. So I would also say that a scientist is someone who, I guess, follows the scientific method, right? So you first have a question and then you research into the question, get a hypothesis, gather information, do experiments, analyze, and then you conclude, right? And usually communicate after. So that's what I would define as a scientist. It can be in several different fields like chemistry, bio, physics, computer science. But I think also the communication part is important, right? Because it's the one thing to research into things, but how are you going to actually get that message across to the general public and especially non-scientists as well? And I know that in my personal journey, I kind of struggled. I kind of had like an identity crisis, I would say, when I was transitioning out of academia. Because if you're, doing academic research or you're sitting at the lab, you feel like a scientist because you're doing experiments every day, you're researching into things. But then when you or if you decide to go into the job market where you're not necessarily working at a lab, you may not feel like a scientist because you're not doing hands-on research. So I know when I transitioned from, my postdoc to working in pharmaceuticals, I was like, especially on my LinkedIn profile, I was thinking, okay, do I still put that I'm a scientist because I'm not exactly doing, research? But I think that, just the fact that I understand science and I'm able to communicate it well, and I'm still doing the scientific method in my job, but just in a different way. I'm not doing physical research. I am still reading, clinical trials and reading papers and being able to understand the science behind it and translate it to, the doctors and the physicians that want to know more. So I think that still is under the umbrella of scientist. And it's something that I had to kind of learn, throughout my transition from academic research to where I am now.
Thank you so much, Anna. And I completely agree. It's terrifying, very scary to transition from doing bench work every day and having the option of putting on a lab coat to just an area where it's no longer necessary. And it can often make you feel, from what I've heard, like you are betraying your scientist self. Thank you for telling us that that's not true. Wealth, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anna and Liz. So I'm just going to build up on what Anna has said already. So for me, I would say a scientist is basically someone who does science. So like you mentioned, the scientific method. So scientists are all about what's this research question I'm trying to answer, and then what's the part to getting that answer that I'm looking for. So scientists deal more with concepts. So they're trying to come
Seems like we're falling into the Zoom trap. Hopefully, Wealth will recover soon. I think we can give it maybe a couple more minutes before we move on to the next question.
Come up with, see how that ideas can tackle. Then science communicator basically has to do with making sense.
Wealth, are you still with us? Okay. I'm guessing technical difficulties, and we're going to hope that they're resolved shortly. I'm going to move on to the next question, but still hold out hope for Wealth's answer, because I think it's important that we get everybody's perspective. So next question from our audience and question list. The next generation of scientists who are listening might be curious to understand what the responsibilities that come with being a scientist and or science communicator are, especially as your research career continues to grow and disseminate across various audiences. So the main question is, what have been some of the major responsibilities and roles you've had to take on? And What skills, jobs, and/or experiences most defined the disciplinary and/or technical specialty you needed to continue growing your career? So that question is a bit of a long one, and it's broken down into two parts. What have been some of the major responsibilities and roles you've had to take on, and what jobs experiences have most defined or allowed you to gain these technical skills while growing your career? Thank you. And I'll throw it over to Liz first.
Okay, so I'm going to try to break it down. It's a lot of questions. The major responsibilities and roles that I've had thus far would be being a science teacher. And in being a science teacher, I think the major responsibility I've had in that role has been to, of course, execute and plan and deliver really great science lessons, but also to encourage the students, because these are the next generation of scientists, potentially, if they choose to go into science, that will help move our scientific fields forward. I've also been a biomedical scientist, as I mentioned, and in conveying information through presentations has been really important, and also publishing in peer-reviewed journals has been important as well. And then also as a science communicator now, and disseminating the information that happens within the agency I'm a part of has been really important. And so being mindful of the audience and being mindful of integrity, being an actor with my various roles of making sure that the science is well reputable and can be well understood is important. And then I think your second question was in terms of like the skills and experiences that have most defined my technical specialty. I would say teaching, presenting, publishing, dissemination of information in terms of soft copy on the internet and in hard copy in publications and in presentations. And I would say I most enjoy presentations because it's more of a two-way conversation versus whenever anything is printed and someone prints it out from the internet or it's stagnantly on the internet, there is no conversation. I can't answer questions and I don't get to learn or understand how I can better improve that communication. But I think I've touched on all of your questions, and if not, I can revisit.
No, you absolutely have. Thank you so much. Wealth, would you like to go next?
Sure. Apologies for the glitch the other time. So my roles, basically, I mentioned earlier on that I studied biochemistry. So since I got out of school for my undergraduate study, I've not done research, like apart from a short internship I had shortly after undergraduate school. So most of my work has been around science communication. So I started out writing in science communication because growing up, writing was a flair. So it was just easy to write about science after I completed my undergraduate studies. So I started out writing, publishing on a newspaper, and then writing on blogs. And then at a point, I was also creating content on social media. So because I had gained skills as a social media manager, doing one volunteering opportunity I had. So I created various kind of designs, graphics, and also associated them with captions to explain different concepts in science, particularly in the context of my interest in immunology, infectious diseases, and vaccines. So all of these experiences contributed to my decision to launch a podcast in 2022. So now I'm into podcasting now. So I conduct interviews now. Also, of course, do some research about the individuals I get to host on my podcast. So those are like the different caps or roles I've had to wear over time. Then in terms of the skills, I would say writing is one of those skills, which of course I didn't get to learn how to write. Writing, I just had to improve on my skill. But something I had to learn how to do more effectively was, I would say, interviewing. Of course, managing a podcast, you have to play different kind of roles, even editing, because I had to learn how to edit audio and video for the podcast, which is currently made up of a very small team. It's independent, so you have to do so many things by yourself for the meantime. And then also, I would also mention the need to network. So because for my podcast, I have to interview guests and invite them. So networking is also a very important skill that has contributed immensely to my role and my growth as a science communication professional. And something else I would also mention, which is obvious, is communication. So communication in itself can be an act, but it's also a skill that has to be improved on, that you have to master different forms of communication, knowing the right questions to ask, knowing when to ask the question, and then knowing whom to ask the question to get the kind of responses that will benefit your audience. So that's my contribution.
Thank you so much for that very detailed answer. And thank you so much for outlining things so specifically. Anna, how about you?
Yeah, so I guess the first question was some of the major responsibilities and roles that I've taken on, right? So I think that there's been various responsibilities and roles, and I can use my PhD and postdoc as an example, like just graduate school, where you take on several roles where you're conducting research, but you're also publishing papers as well. You're communicating science through presentations, rather either to your peers or in a conference setting. And you're just getting your science out there, right? And so I think that the whole process of going through, grad school really helps you to kind of gain those skills and take on those responsibilities and roles that are needed in the outside world as well. And some of the skills, so the next question, I guess, is what skills, jobs, and our experiences most define the disciplinary or the technical specialty? Okay, so I think also some of the skills and jobs that I've taken on. So I can talk about a few jobs. So during my PhD, I was also teaching as well. So I was teaching pre-dental students and pre-med students chemistry. So I found that that really helped a lot, because it's one thing knowing the science and knowing the information, but then really communicating it to a student population that is just learning it for the first time really helps you to break down concepts. Because I find that, especially when you go through your PhD and you become more knowledgeable in your field, you kind of just assume that everyone's at the same level as you. So sometimes it's kind of hard to break things down to like the elementary level so that people can understand. And I find that teaching really helped me to do that, to kind of break things down to, the basic level. And then just from there, just kind of build up concepts so that people will understand. So I found that helpful. And also during my PhD, similar to Wealth, I started doing kind of like a blog on social media on my Instagram, where I used to kind of take different science concepts or things that would happen in the world and kind of just talk about the science behind them. And one of the things I was really interested was kind of in cosmetics as well. So like looking at cosmetics and looking at the ingredients and talking about that, or even just things that happen in nature and talking about the science behind it. And from there, I kind of also realized that there was a disconnect between the science world and the non-science world as well, where there's a lot of things, like science is all around us all the time. But the thing is, no one really knows the science behind things that happen because it's not really communicated. So I think that that also showed me that there's this huge gap where, the general population doesn't necessarily know because it just hasn't been communicated to them. And so building those skills in terms of how to be a good communicator, to know your audience. For example, like if I'm talking to non-scientists, I wouldn't be saying, certain words or certain terms or putting things in certain ways that I would if I was talking to, a scientific population. So I think building those skills in terms of communicating and knowing your audience and knowing how they understand things really helped me to take on those different responsibilities that I did.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your answers. Thank you for being clear. And thank you for giving us outlines for what we need to do if we want to become awesome like you. Next, we're curious, and we also want to take a moment to zoom into Nigeria, where students wanting to pursue a PhD or become a scientist and or specialize in any form of science communication can face many detractors and misconceptions regarding a career that values both science and science communication. So what is your advice to undergraduates, undergraduates in Nigeria and across the African diaspora who are not only hoping to transition into research, but may also be hesitant or not know about the pathways in which science is integrated, and created in society? That was a long question, so I'm hoping it's also going in the chat. And I think let's switch it up. Anna, how do you feel about starting first for this one?
That's fine. Yeah. So this is something that I think that I had to learn quite a bit, especially transitioning outside of academia. That, and I mentioned this before, kind of in my intro, that being a scientist isn't just, being at the lab bench and conducting scientific research, like physical research, but there are so many other job opportunities that integrate science as well. And I think it was through probably networking and just talking to different people in different career paths that I realized that, if you do want to go into research, that's completely fine. Like, research is amazing. You learn a lot of skills, it's a great basis. And there's people that can stay in research for years. But if you still value research, but you don't actually like physically doing research, kind of like I was, there's a lot of different ways that you can apply your science in the world. And so one of the ways that I did was moving into the pharmaceutical industry. So with pharmaceutical industry, there's a lot of different pathways as well within the industry that you can take. But most of them are based in science, right? So you are basing it off of science, but you can do different things in terms of communication, communicating with different physicians, communicating internally. And that's another way that you can express your science as well. So I don't know if I answered fully the question. I'm just reading the other half of the question. So the second half, I guess, was for people that may be hesitant or not know about all the pathways in which science is integrated. So I would just say network. That helped me a lot, just talking to people, because I know growing up, I wasn't really exposed to the different things that you could do with science degree. I always thought that if you had a science degree, you're either going to be, a science teacher or be a doctor or like a dentist or one of those professions. But I didn't know, just because I wasn't surrounded by a group of people that had science degrees and were doing other things. So for me personally, I found that networking really helped, even just on LinkedIn, and just creeping people's profiles and seeing their career trajectories and like kind of where they went. Sometimes I love doing that because it's interesting, the people that started in science and then end up in like, business management or something, but it's still kind of rooted in science as well. So I would just say, like, explore, network. There's not only one pathway that you have to go down if you have a science degree. There's a lot of different things that you can do.
100% agree. How about you, Elizabeth? What do you think?
I think Anna gave a really great answer. Some of my own personal advice would be to be curious. So ask questions, do your research. The internet is at our fingertips. And so it's this huge resource that you can use to identify areas of research or broad areas of research that you might be interested in, institutions, programs, or universities that might help you to gain that graduate experience that you want, if you want that, as you might want to transition into research. And I honestly would suggest seeking out other graduate students or postdocs in labs of interest, if this is meant for like graduate school, that you are interested in, because talking to faculty is really insightful, but other graduate students and postdocs know what it is to work in that lab and to explore the research within that lab from that lens. And I think that that could be more insightful and helpful as you're making decisions and navigating where you want to go and where you want to land. And I think also in terms of searching for internships, I know Wealth mentioned that he did one, so that was really great. No matter how the length of time it is, doing it, it's experience that you have, and you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. So if you can get internships, summer research programs, find funding opportunities. I know that that looks different in each country, but those are some ways and some avenues to get in and transition into research. I also think that in terms of like the unknowns of what pathways you can do or navigate to and may be hesitant, I think we're learning, especially post-pandemic, that science is integrated in a lot of different industries. And so As Anna mentioned, LinkedIn is a really great resource. If you have an idea of which company or entity that you're interested in going into, going to that company's page, looking at the people, looking at their titles, looking at their backgrounds, doing your research and being curious in that regard is going to be really helpful. There's different search engines. I mean, we have Google, of course, there's ChatGPT. There's different career fields that you can navigate your way into. So if you have a question or you have something that you want to get more information about, doing your research and finding your way to that information or someone that can help point you in the right direction. And I would just say from my personal experience in my graduate research experience, yes, be curious and pivot as you need to, but do not give up. Never, ever give up. And so one of the things that comes to mind is a quote that I clung to among other resources and support mechanisms that I utilized to get through grad school. And it's by Steve Harvey. And it goes something like, never give up. If you give up, the only guarantee is that it will never happen. The only way the possibility remains that it could possibly happen is if you never give up. So don't give up no matter what. And for me, grad school was a long journey, and it had many highs and many lows. And the lows felt like they lasted forever because it's a very intellectual environment, and it's not just brute force. It's a lot of training and overcoming. And so I wanted to say, don't give up, but pivot as you need to.
100% agreed. And I think I need to write that down. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. How about you, Wealth? What's your perspective on this?
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely with Elizabeth and Anna. You should be open to exploring. I would ask, how would you know what you want if you've not explored? So, if for someone who's not sure what aspect of science to delve into, I would just say, just explore, try different things. Like they already listed so many examples, like internships, checking Google, using social media. So just look up different titles, connect with different persons. So just be open to exploring. So, and that exploration can come in different forms, but just be willing to explore. I think that's the first step. And then from when you've explored, you probably will find certain things that interest you. But when you find those interests, be willing also to pour yourself fully into it, because you will not get the maximum benefit or, become passionate about something if you have not dedicated, you are not willing to dedicate an aspect of yourself to it. Dedicate some time, dedicate resources, kind of just invest in it. So be willing to explore and then invest. And I would also add that it's important to find the right communities. So maybe your peers or mentors or coaches. So just connect with individuals that can give you that guidance, because I delved into science communication by chance. So I have a mentor then from my undergraduate, and then she wrote this article about science communication, and I read it and I was like, so is there something like science communication? Because all through my undergraduate studies, I never heard that term, science communication. So reading that article just opened my eyes to, oh, wow, science communication does exist. This is something I definitely should be interested in. So if you had not read that article, I've not had that mentor, I'm not sure my journey into science communication would not even be here today having this conversation. So that is also important. So finding the right communities, your peers, your mentors, your coaches. And then the last thing I would add is to just start somewhere. You might be waiting for that beautiful, perfect career that would interest you. But where you are now, if you're studying biology or you're studying chemistry or you're studying biochemistry like myself, just start from there. Is it an internship that you got, or you didn't get an internship? Maybe after school you got a teaching role, or you got something somewhere. Just start from there, and perhaps you would build from there to become, get to that perfect career that you are waiting for. But there is really no perfect career anywhere. You build and you grow into whatever you want to explore in the near future. So that would be my advice.
Thank you so much.
Is it okay if I just add one more thing?
Absolutely.
Okay. I just wanted to add something because as Wealth was talking, I was just remembering about how when I was talking about how I didn't really know all the careers out there, right? And I feel like just naturally, you don't really know all the career opportunities out there. So what I started to do was, instead of looking, like when I was looking for different pathways of that I can go through, instead of looking at the job title specifically, I would look at the skills required, because I knew the interest that I had. And so I was interested in multiple things. I was interested in science. I was also interested in science communication, but I was also interested in business as well. And so I was trying to find a position that kind of encompasses everything that I was interested in. And so I just really took the route of following my interests and then looking at the different job descriptions and what they actually were looking for. And no matter what the job is, because initially, if you asked me a couple of years ago, I would say I would never go in sales. Like, I'm not a salesperson at all, right? Like, I'm not that typical. It's just not my personality. But I fell into this just because of the job description and exactly what the description actually said. And I realized that that catered to the skills that I had and the interest that I had. And so for me, like, if you ask me what my end goal is or what it is that I want to be like 10 years from now, I can't really tell you, right? Because my interests are going to change. And so as my interests are changing, I'm just going to continue to follow whatever interests might change, or whatever path that my interests are going to lead me to. And to what job that is, I don't really know. And I think that's completely fine, right? I think it's fine to not be set on one career path, for your whole life. I think it's okay to kind of follow a path of trying different things until you get to the place where you like something. And then if you get bored, keep on following your interest to find something else, right, that you're interested in. So that's kind of the approach that I'm taking with my career path.
Thank you, Anna. So to our audience, from our panelists, in summary, be dynamic, be willing to move, never give up, never ever give up, and find the right community that will lead you to the right opportunities. I think I summarized everything. I think. I'm not sure. All right, moving on to our next question. So there's been such a boom in podcasting over the past couple of years, and science media has been rapidly changing and disseminating across the world in a way that it really wasn't, or at least not at the scale before the pandemic. This is important not just for podcast listeners or science magazine readers, but also for decision makers who need scientific solutions communicated to them in impactful and memorable ways without all the jargon. How have you seen how well-communicated scientific stories have been able to shift culture, decisions, and or the outcomes of policy that impact the future of science itself? And how have these impacts differed in Nigeria, across Africa, and in the international community? How about we start this time with Will?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Okay, so I would say as a podcaster, I got into podcasting, of course, after the pandemic. And part of the reason why I started podcasting was also because I wanted to combat misinformation and, help people understand science and, just get the right person, help them get the right information about science, help them understand what African scientists are doing, and that, okay, we're all on the same side. We're all trying to understand this problem. We're all trying to tackle these diseases. So while I cannot cite specific examples of how science communication has impacted policy in Nigeria or across Africa, I would say that my contributions as a podcaster does have that potential to inform people and maybe inform policy decisions, inform policymakers, inform key stakeholders that will contribute to how science is done and could also contribute to the kind of support that science gets. Because one thing I often do on the podcast is to ask the guests I have questions about some of the challenges that they've spotted in the continent with regards to science, with regards to the translation of science, with regards to the involvement of government in science, and what they would want to see being done better. So I think when someone who is a policymaker or a government official or a stakeholder listens to that kind of conversation, they would probably be thinking about, okay, this is an area that people are concerned about, particularly something that some of my guests keep talking about, for instance, the funding of research or maybe collaboration among African scientists. So these are issues that several guests have spoken about on my podcast. And if for someone who follows the podcast, they'll be able to say, okay, this is something that we have to work on. This is something that we have to change our cultural perspective about as scientists in the continent, or as, local communities in the continent. So that's one thing I would say. And I would also like to highlight that even in the community I mentioned earlier that I co-founded Biosphera, we also have some of these conversations about how conversations can shape policy and what is being done, what isn't being done yet, and what is the way forward. So we have some of those conversations as young and emerging scientists. I would like to have kind of maybe, like, call it role playing, to say, okay, if I were in this position of authority, what would I do differently, or how would I address this issue or tackle this challenge differently? So those are some of the ways that I believe that my current work, or science communication or science engagement in general, can shape policy, even though I'm not able to cite any specific example of how that has happened yet. Thank you. Muted.
Thank you so much. Well, next, let's hear from the AAAS fellow in the House. What do you think, Elizabeth?
I think it's a very interesting question. And when you're asking, how have I seen well-communicated scientific stories shift culture and so on and so forth, I think of the stories that have been most impactful to me and I've seen my community respond to are those that are personal perspectives. So from seeing someone or a group of people that have had maybe some type of ailment, or I'll just give an example of there being water contamination in a variety of places in the US, and seeing that happen and how it's impacting their lives has been very impactful in terms of like shifting culture and shifting decisions and how people want to move forward with their lives and make decisions about their children's lives. So in terms of like the water contamination, hearing how the water is impacting the health of the individuals in that community, and understanding how through a series of decisions through the local government of that community and how that was handled and what led to the water being contaminated, and how it can be remedied and what improvements need to be instated, and how the community and themselves can be supported, have been really impactful. I think when people see other people's stories, they see themselves in those stories or someone that they know in those stories. And I think those are the ones that can really shift a culture and shift the way policy can be changed. And then I think your second half of your question was, how have these impacts differed in Nigeria? So I think I think the biggest thing is access to resources, opportunities, and adequate support. When I think of how things can be shifted here and how here in America and stateside, how things can be shifted and things can be moved, I think that in Nigeria, it's different because just from the standpoint of the government, the country structure is different. But I think that there aren't a lack of very intelligent people there. There aren't a lack of people that want change, and how well-crafted science or scientific stories can shift a nation or a country. I think I'm hopeful that with time things can get better, but I think the biggest thing is when there is a personal story, people can rally around that because they can see themselves or someone that they know in that situation.
Agreed. Thank you, Elizabeth. And Anna, how about you?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with both Liz and Wealth. And I think that there's power in personal stories. And if those stories are communicated properly, I think that there's power in that. And immediately I kind of thought of the pandemic, when the pandemic was happening. And the opposite actually was happening, where there was a lot of scientific or there was a lot of information that was, misconstrued just because of the lack of science communication. So there was a lot of people that were, I guess, self-proclaimed scientists and were taking information that they didn't understand and were communicating it to the public, right? And so we saw the opposite in terms of how that shifted culture and kind of brought fear into culture. So I think that that time really kind of proved that there is a space for scientific communication and for people to actually people that understand science to actually share it and communicate it with the public to shift it in the right direction. And I've also just kind of seen as well, the different types of science communication that has been taken on in the past few years. And I don't know if this has been going on for a long time, but maybe I've just been exposed to it in the last few years. But I've definitely seen the growth of sharing personal stories and even just catering to different cultures to get kids and to get, the younger population interested in science, because believe it or not, like they're going to be our next futures, right? They're the future of, the policy, they're the future of science. And so getting them interested in science and helping them to understand science as well, through sharing personal stories or through communicating science in a way that they will understand. I've really kind of seen that shift in the past few years. So I think it's very impactful, and I think it's very necessary.
Thank you. So from our panelists to our audience, in summary, while a lot of science communication can shift cultures and policies, one of the biggest proponents or one of the biggest methods by which this is done is sharing your personal stories through a scientific lens or sharing your personal scientific experiences. And our final question from me, the moderator, before we throw it out to the audience, we'd like to ask who or what inspires you to create science, to create the science and science communication that you've made, and what brings you great confidence and hope in the scientific discoveries and stories that you want to share with your communities. So what's your inspiration and what gives you confidence for what's coming after? I'm not sure who to go for. Anyone can start this one. Anyone that feels most inspired.
I can start. I don't mind. So I would say that what inspires me is me 15 years ago, right? Because I know when I'm looking back at myself 15 years ago, I didn't think that what I'm doing now would be possible. And I think that was just because of a lack of information. Like I felt like I didn't know a lot about the science world. Like I said before, I thought that there was only one career path, that if you're interested in science, you go into med school or you go and you be a dentist, right? I didn't know that you can do hands-on research. I didn't know that you can work in science policy. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know that you can work in pharmaceuticals. And so just the fact that I had such a lack of knowledge of, how huge the scientific world is and how you can apply science to so many different trajectories. I think that's what inspires me to share my story. And even to just like mentor the younger population as well, just so that they're exposed and that they know that there are all these opportunities that they can do, so they're not limited, right? And even if they don't see themselves as a doctor, they don't see themselves as a dentist, you can still see yourself as a scientist in other capacities. And so I think that, just thinking about how my view of science was so narrow, that kind of, inspires me currently to share my story. And just like Wealth, I'm like a beginner podcaster. So I just started a podcast and very, very new though. So I'm probably not on the level as Wealth, but it's a podcast that I started just to share my story and kind of share my career trajectory as well, and all the things that I've learned. It's called Lessons from a PhD. And so I just kind of use that as my outlet to really just share the things that I didn't know going into grad school and, going down this career path, but things that could help other people in the future, if they're going down a similar career path.
Thank you so much, Anna. How about you, Liz? What do you think? What's your inspiration?
I think when when I got these questions, I was thinking about what my inspiration was. And I think the common thread of like, even before I was knowing where I wanted to go to grad school, or what I wanted to do within grad school, was to share information. I feel like there is a wealth of knowledge out there, and I don't know if there's a human brain that can house all the things that are on the internet and know all the things that are happening in everyday life and all the things that happened in history before there was an internet. I think that as we're living together and enjoying our lives and trying to make the best of our lives and make the best decisions within our life, sharing what we know with others is a really great way to live, in my opinion. And so, what initially inspired me was my parents, in terms of knowing that they came to this country and they didn't have a lot of support, but they did the best that they could and instilled, and I think this is very common across a variety of Nigerian households, the importance of education and how no one could take an education away from you. And in of itself, it's teachers sharing knowledge with you, and then you also being proactive in reading books and different literature bases and so on and so forth. And so to me, I think what really inspires me is seeing how my parents came to this country. They worked very, very, very hard. And just from what they did and how they instilled in me and my siblings, that knowledge is power, and of course education is very important. And so to me, what gives me confidence and what gives me hope is to be able to share the knowledge I have, with others. And being a scientist, as new information comes out and as we know more and learn more in our various fields, that I can be able to comprehend that information and simply convey it to others that may not have a scientific background to do the same. And so that gives me confidence, that gives me hope. Yeah, and thanks.
Sorry, guys, I keep forgetting that I'm on mute. I'll just leave myself off mute. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. How about you, Wealth? Tell us about your inspiration and your what gives you confidence for the future. And after that, we'll throw it to the audience for any questions they might have.
Okay, so for me, what I would say what gives me inspiration would be the continent of Africa. So that sounds large, but majority of my work in science communication in science has really been about the potentials, the gaps, the challenges in the context of our continent. And I highlighted earlier on that when I decided to delve into podcasting, it was partly because of the challenges with misinformation, disinformation, myths that became so rampant during the pandemic. And but I do believe that when you communicate to people, communication, like the previous question we just talked about, can change people, can inform their decisions, can help them grow and develop. So communication is also a form of education, and we know how transformative the power of education is. So that is something that inspires me. I think our continent, Africa, has lots of challenges, has lots of gaps, has lots of potential, and being able to contribute to building, helping the continent mine some of these potentials, helping the continent fill some of these gaps and challenges is something that I am really inspired about, and I feel really glad that I'm able to do that in my own in my very little way currently as a science communicator and of course a budding scientist. And then for regards hope and confidence, I would say unlike Anna that was inspired by a younger self, I'm really, really inspired and hopeful about the trajectory I'm currently on and my future self. So I'm excited about what I'm doing currently, and I'm excited about where it's going to lead me to in the future. Of course, I'm not sure about that yet. I'm not sure where it would lead me to, but I do believe that it will lead me somewhere powerful, somewhere amazing or phenomenal. So that's where my hope and confidence comes from. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your honest and detailed and incredibly interesting answers. We have one more last question from NSPN in the chat. And I think this one is very relevant to a lot of the audience who want to get into science communication. How has each panelist been able to build their confidence in communicating publicly, especially if you were initially an introverted person, or if you just didn't have a lot of experience with written or verbal public communication? How are you able to build up this skill, this really important skill?
So I can start because naturally I'm a very introverted person. I don't like public speaking at all. But I found that, with grad school, and Elizabeth, I'm sure you can attest to this, you're always public speaking, right? You always need to share the research that you're doing. You have a lot of presentations that you have to do. So definitely practice, I would say. So practice really helped, and just doing it over and over again. But also just coming to the realization that I'm never going to know anything. And I think that's one thing, or sorry, I'm never going to know everything, rather. And I think that's one thing that grad school teaches you. Like, the more and more you get into your research, the more and more you realize that you actually don't know anything about your field, right? Like a very small section of your field. So being comfortable in the fact that there's still some things that you don't know, but the things that you do know, those are the things that you can communicate. And the things that you do know, I'm sure a lot of people don't know, those things. And so taking it upon yourself to know that it's your duty to communicate it, and just kind of putting that responsibility on yourself kind of helped me to build confidence, because if it's something that people need to know to either progress in life or to do better, why would I, hide that or shy away from it just because I'm not confident in speaking, right? So that's kind of the approach that I took.
Right.
I'll share a little bit on that question. In terms of like building my confidence in communicating publicly, I'm slightly a little more extroverted. And so I really do like presenting. I enjoy having the discussion. I think I mentioned this in my first answer to the first question or so. I love that when there's a discussion and there's information that can be exchanged and I can understand how someone's thinking about things. It gives me more insight to how to better present. But how I built my confidence, like Anna mentioned, grad school, there's lots of presentations. I mean, you're giving presentations to your committee, you're giving presentation, your thesis committee, you're giving presentations to your department about your research, or journal clubs to your fellow peer graduate students and postdocs and faculty. So there's a lot of presentations. And I think within the first year of my PhD, I had a lot of practice sessions. So I would have different friends from other first year and some that were more advanced come to my practice sessions and like critique my presentations in terms of the format, how it looked on the screen for the PowerPoint, my ability to answer questions, and to discuss and the flow and the transition of the presentation as well. So a lot of practice was put in, and even now there's still things that I can continue to learn and continue to grow as my area of presenting within has changed. It's no longer in academia, it's now more public facing. But practice is very important. And I think that when you have something that you're really confident in, like you believe what you're talking about, or you're very interested in the area of research, you're naturally going to want to do more delving into the research and understanding the different sides and viewpoints within that area. And that can build confidence as well. It's like, well, one researcher said this and another researcher said this, and, there's a open interpretation and there's room for more research to be done so we can understand more. There isn't a lot of definitive things. Even the central dogma was debunked by reverse transcriptase, and so or retroviruses. And so I think that there's a room for interpretation, but I would say practice.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And finally, Wealth, how about you? What is your perspective?
Okay, so confidence in communicating publicly. So interestingly, I've been saying that when I delved into science communication, I wanted to write and I started writing. But the plot twist to that was that when I wanted to start communication, the first opportunity I get was to be to speak on TV and radio, because one of the persons I spoke with was a TV and radio presenter in my city, and she was willing to give me a few minutes to come talk. And I told her, no, I don't want to come on TV or radio. I'm very shy. So it's really interesting now to me that I now have a podcast and I conduct live interviews. I conduct interviews on video and sometimes audio. So it was like, okay, well, what were you thinking then? So for me, it has taken a while, and like they said, confidence is really, really important, because then I didn't think I was confident enough to be on TV or radio or to talk to people. I just felt writing was my comfort zone, but as we all know, it's always important to step out of your comfort zones. So it's important to learn, to be willing to learn. If something is a skill, it means it can be improved on. So communication is not like, there's no one they gave birth to on this earth that came, with perfect communication skills. Everybody had to learn. Everybody had to grow. So learning from, there are some very powerful speakers that you can, listen to them speak, watch their YouTube videos, see how they speak and all of that. So learning is definitely one thing that has helped improve my communication skills. And I would also say, being in a community, I mentioned the importance of community earlier on, but being in that, having that a space where you can, make mistakes, learn from people, see how other persons are doing, and also get direct feedback. Like Liz just highlighted, having to learn from both senior and senior grad students and also our peers. So that is also something that has helped me, being in a community of like-minded individuals who are passionate about growing their communication skills and who are also willing to offer support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I noticed that Anastasia, our NSPN committee chair, has her hand up. And just wanted to give an opportunity for her to say something. And also we have about 12 more minutes before the event ends. So audience, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or ask them once Anastasia's done talking.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be hearing from you all today. It's been fantastic. And I want to, I love kind of dispelling the myth of the man behind the curtain. So I would love if Anna and Wealth could take a second to talk more about science podcasting. We've done science journalism, and I want to get almost into like the nitty gritty, the hard work and labor of it. So could you talk about almost like, what is that timeline? If someone were to start up their own podcast, like what does it look like being in development and then like finally releasing something? What's kind of like the timeline, the equipment, and anything else that goes into that process, just so they feel like, actually, this is something I could do. I don't need maybe any particular platform or particular service. So I guess I hand it to Wealth back again first.
Okay. Okay. So when I got into podcasting, of course, I got guidance from an experienced podcaster. So I wouldn't say it was a walk in the park, but I didn't encounter much challenges starting out. I started my podcasting with my headsets and a laptop. So it was important to get a laptop. Of course, I would have been able to work with a phone, but the style of podcasting I was exploring involved interviewing guests, and I had to have conversations with them on a platform like Zoom, record that conversation, download it, and edit it. But basically, in the context of tools, you can work with like a simple mic or headset, and then with microphone, of course, and a device, maybe a laptop, a pad or something. But of course, there are more sophisticated tools that you can get. But if you're starting out, that should be enough for you. And so for me, once I've recorded an episode, depends on whether it's both video and audio, but I usually edit the episode, because there's you need to include maybe an intro, an outro, maybe background music, and maybe just there are aspects of the conversations that do not really contribute to, it won't benefit your audience. Maybe there's a question you asked that you're really interested in, but after conducting the interview, you realize, oh, this doesn't really fit into what my audience would benefit from. You can take out that part of the conversation. And so that's about the main work. So once that is ready, you listen to it. Editing can take several hours or days, depending on how good you are. When I started out, it was really difficult, but over time, I've gotten better at it. Of course, I'm not yet a professional editor, but I'm trying my best. Then of course, you need a platform on which to publish. There are several platforms. There's Buzzsprout. There is Anchor, now called Spotify for podcasters, which I started out on. So once you have that platform, you can upload your episode there, your first episode, and then I would say that's it. Another thing I would like to mention is about promoting the podcast. So volunteering has helped me gain graphics design skills, social media management skills. So when I started that, it was like virtually a one-man team. So I was doing everything, managing my social media pages, making my designs, doing everything by myself, because I gained all of these skills earlier on from some of the initiatives that I embarked on. So, but if you're starting out, your graphics don't have to be perfect. Your social media posts don't have to be perfect, but those are like some of the important things you need. But of course, you need to promote your work, promote the podcast, so people would come listen to it, because no one will just stumble on your podcast randomly and listen to it. You have to let people know that you started something, and then it's important. It will be what their time that they listen to it. So that's like the contributions I would have. Maybe one last will be getting guests, depending on the kind of podcast, but then you have to also invest time and effort into getting the right guests for your show. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, and I think, Anna, you just started your podcast, so tell us how that is going, and what the process is like for you.
Yeah, Wealth pretty much covered it all. Like I said, I'm still very new. I'm like a month in to podcasting. And so pretty much what Wealth said, like before I started, I got advice from a friend who has a podcast and is doing pretty well. So he directed me in terms of, what platform to use. So I use Podcastle as a platform, and I think it's pretty much the same as Anchor and all those other distribution platforms. But once you upload it, then it just kind of spreads it to like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. And then I think the hardest part for me is coming up with the topics to talk about, and then recording. So I remember my first time I recorded, it was a lot of stop and goes, right? But it's nice though, because it's not live. So you can record something and say if you realize that you don't like the way you sounded, or you said too many times, and you can erase it and record again. So I think my first episode was about 30 minutes, but it took me like an hour, 30 minutes to record. So it's going to be rough at the beginning for sure. But as time goes on, like I agree with Wealth, it just gets easier. It was awkward at first to just kind of talk to yourself in a microphone for 30 minutes, but you just get used to it after a while. But yeah, I think Wealth covered everything. Like what you need is just a microphone or a headset, a laptop, a computer. You can do it on your phone too. And then for recording, I use a GarageBand. So with GarageBand, I find it easier just to edit, and it has all the functions and everything. It makes it very simple. And then, yeah, you just release it and hope that people listen, and then you promote it as well. So yeah, it's an interesting journey. I don't know if I can really keep this up, but so far I'm liking it.
We're gonna borrow from Liz's advice earlier. Never give up.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm taking that to heart.
All right. Thank you so much, panelists. We have about 5 minutes left, so if there are any audience questions, now would be a wonderful time to either type them in the chat or ask them directly to our panelists if you are willing to unmute yourself.
So I think there's a question for me in the chat.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, Ope's been dropping some really good ones. Thank you, Ope. We can kind of maybe wrap them up together, because it's almost like this question of like, I'm sure Liz and Wealth have met some fantastic people in their time working with like decision makers or scientists on the front lines. So could you both talk about what that experience is like? And I guess like, Ope and I, we always talk about when we organize these events too, we understand like, wow, it takes so much work to get to actually do and create some of these things that when we watch on TV, it looks almost so natural. And so could you talk about like maybe that hard labor that goes into that as well.
And we hate to rush you, but we've got limited time, and we need to start wrapping up. So if you could just give us very brief answers. Thank you so much.
I'll go first. In terms of the experience and communicating to policymakers from the chat, well, being at an agency, it's a very centralized method in which we communicate. So being at the NIH, it's not like I can go to a policymaker and say, hey, I'm working on this initiative within the NIH. That's a big don't do. Rather, there is an office within the NIH that liaises between policymakers and the NIH itself, and we can interact with that office. And so I've been able to be a part of crafting presentations, or a presentation that has been given to that office to help them understand what my home office is doing and the importance of it, and how to communicate that as effectively and clearly to policymakers so they understand the importance and continue to send support our way. And one of the skills that I've learned as a whole, from various professional development trainings, is that you're going to want to understand what the other person's values are and what's important to them, and socializing an idea. So talking about it, planting seeds about the importance of whatever you want to bring home or see get more attention and support, but being mindful of what the person you're trying to convey a message to, what they also value, so that there can be some diplomacy and some common ground that can be achieved.
Thank you. And I think this question was for Liz and Wealth. So Wealth, what do you think? Immediately
Yeah,
after,
so quick.
I'm sorry. Immediately after which I will pass back to Anastasia to wrap us up.
Okay, so quickly, for the second question about skills I've learned so far, and the skills that I'm learning. So I think one of the skills that has been most important to me in my journey as a science communicator is my flair in writing. So the fact that I've always had this interest in writing, because I've leveraged that skill to be able to communicate clearly, to be able to write interviews, to be able to interview. So it has played a very crucial role in my journey as a science communicator. Then for the first question about some of the measures that my guests have identified for developing scientific enterprise in Africa, I will just mention three, which I think have been the most recurrent, which will be funding, collaboration, and communication. So almost every guest I ask about challenges in Africa, what we can do better, they always talk about the need for us to give more attention to funding, investment in research, both from government and private agencies, but especially from the government. And several commentaries, several African scientists have even written about some of these issues and published on different journal article platforms. So funding is really, really important for us to do better research in Africa and to, amplify the kind of work, amazing work our scientists are currently doing. And of course, we need to communicate whatever we are doing. So Anna and Liz have mentioned earlier on about reaching out to even up and coming scientists, like very young people, and educating them about what science is all about. And then the last thing I talked about will be collaboration. So there's this idea that some African scientists work in silos. So you could be doing a research. I'm also doing exactly the same thing somewhere else. We are not working together. We are not doing the same thing. So there's that need for better and stronger collaboration. So that's just the three things I would mention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And passing back over to our chair, just to wrap us up and give closing remarks.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. The panelists have been absolutely fantastic. I love doing this series because it's so dynamic, and it really challenges you to kind of go beyond just like that very domain specific question of like, okay, what is science communication, but instead brings a more human element, a more journey perspective to it. So I want to say thank you for all your insights on like being curious, asking these questions, networking, never giving up. I really appreciated it. And for those online, I love this opportunity because it gives you a chance to now you be the science communicator. And so NSPN, we are like your platform to host any kind of writing that you send our way. Specifically, we're asking for those here, if you'd like to write a 200 to 600 word blog post on the event and the role that science communication plays in research development at local, state, national level, or in other different capacities. And just to kind of show you real fast what that actually looks like, this has been our first blog release, and I really appreciate the editors behind this, and our webmaster Meredith Schmel, who's kind of helped create the web page for it. So this is kind of the opportunities we want to host for you all. And with that, I want to kind of close out the event and thank you all for joining.